Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm Adrian Danila, your host, and we're super excited about our guest today. I want to start by thanking our sponsors from KAIROS and Coastal Painting Contractors for making this broadcast possible. With this being said, I'm turning it over to my co-host, Chris Moreno. Take it away, sir.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Adrian. I'm really excited to today. We have a special guest who's been in the industry for quite a while. Katelyn, we actually met, I believe it was down was it in Arizona when we first met?
I think so. I think
Okay.
it was.
Yeah. Katelyn's got a ton of industry experience. And I think one of the coolest things is one of the things I'm excited to dive into is obviously your history around H2 real estate and what you've built, the work you've done with the Greater Birmingham Apartment Association, and really about being a leader. Have you done podcasts before? Or is this your first time doing podcasts in the industry?
First time doing a podcast. So
Okay.
I
Awesome.
love to teach and educate. So the little odd part here is I can't see my audience, which feels a little strange.
It's tricky, right? It's always tough. So yeah, no, I appreciate you joining us today. I'm pretty excited because you have so much experience from operations to management to people management, technology. You've really done it all. So I'm kind of curious. I want to jump in, in your work at H2, how did you think about getting into real estate business? Was it something you learned from others? Was it something you fell into? Give us a little inside information into like how you got excited about this industry.
Okay. I did fall into it. So my mom has been in the industry for a little over 40 years. She started out as a leasing consultant and is now a partner in her firm with a third of everything they own. So that's really exciting. So I can remember from a very young age being woken up in the middle of the night to get to a fire or something that she needed to handle urgently, and really just seeing her build a career from that starting role and getting to be in an ownership position. And she's a very disciplined professional woman. I am so grateful that I had her as an example. So I did fall into it. I did start as a leasing consultant and there found that above all, sales is my real love. I loved leasing apartments. I did that for 3 or 4 years and then moved up the ranks over the past 15 years. And that love for sales has really translated into my leadership roles. You move from having the buy-in of the prospect to lease this apartment to having the buy-in of, hundreds of employees and the culture you're building and the organization you represent. So that is how I started, and it was about 15 years ago when I started in the industry.
Amazing. I mean, you've oversee over 180 properties, if I'm not mistaken, over 2,000 units, a lot of leadership now, your role has evolved, obviously, in
Yes.
getting from when you fell into the industry and mentored others. But, I'm kind of curious, to know, like, how many different organizations have you been a part of? Have you found, that you've wanted to move from organization to move up, or have you been able to find leadership roles within the same organizations?
I was able to find leadership roles within the same organization. So over the past 15 years, I've only been with 4 different groups. The first 3 large organizations, Greystar, Bell Partners, and Balfour Beatty. That has been an interesting shift being with H2 because it is a smaller shop. But what excited me most about moving over to H2 was the completely centralized operation. So we do have roughly 2,500 units, about 400,000 square feet of commercial space. 189 properties make up those 2,500 units. So that is interesting and fun. We're totally centralized, but for the most part, I've been able to move up within the organizations that I've been with.
Katelyn, you mentioned growing up in the industry, right? Just seeing your mom, and her career, and you basically follow her footsteps. Now, one of the challenges that we have as an industry in bringing new blood to the industry and actually letting people know outside of multifamily that multifamily it's actually an industry. There's actually a career that someone could have, and you could like make a very great career for yourself. How do we turn the tables and get better at a message for people that never heard of multifamily as a career?
I think the goal for all of us needs to be setting a good example. Just like I had an example set for me, I really am aware of how, I carry myself in and outside of the workplace, and to really, understand and take to heart that the way, I act about my career, whether it's in front of my association peers or at conferences or the team that I lead now, that's what really gets them excited about it, about being industry leaders. But for the folks that don't know, really what we do and the fruitful business we are in and the promise that it can hold, I think it's important that we educate them on the growth opportunities and how you are able to, quicker than most industries, climb the ladder, and really putting an emphasis on personal connections in this industry mean everything. We all know that, making sure that you're really harboring positive relationships with the right people in the industry to allow you that growth. But overall, staying positive, educating the new folks coming through or that are interested in coming through, and forming those positive relationships. I can say that 80% of my growth has been due to the relationships I've formed over the years with industry leaders and peers.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, the power of getting out there, and I think it's pretty awesome because you're in a unique market, right? You manage unique types of properties, but you're obviously getting out there. We've met several times at events and through other people, and you always bring great insights. How do you think about, obviously you got to pick and choose your time wisely, right? You can't be at every event. How do you decide when you're thinking about what type of events to speak at or to go to or to network at, as you kind of mentioned, when you're traveling and thinking about spending your time?
I really look at the impact that I could have on others at these events, especially when I'm asked about training, education, speaking events. I really want to make sure that I'm able to leave a good impact and a lasting impact on the group that I'm in front of. And that's really how I weigh those things, because obviously there's costs associated with that some of the time. Yeah, I do a lot of research on who's going to be there, the goals of those individuals, not simply who is there, because they can be there and not have a real reason to be there. What are they there for? But that's how I kind of look at those types of engagements is where can I have the most positive impact and most lasting impact for our industry.
I want to thank all of you who are joining us virtually. Drop a line in the comments. Let us know where you're watching from. And if you have a question from Katelyn, just drop it in the comments. We're going to monitor the comment boxes and, select some questions for her. My question for you, my next question is, you mentioned that your company is heavily relying on centralization due to the specific of the assets. I'd like to get your thoughts on, what are some challenges and opportunities when it comes to centralization, and what a larger operator can learn from a company your size that must be focused on centralization. Obviously, when you have smaller assets and you can't afford to have full-time employees on each asset, and you had to, you had to share. What are some things that could translate into larger models that could actually be successful, since centralization is a huge topic in today's world?
And we have far from perfected it. I will tell you that. It's a really exciting ride to be on. And one of the main reasons I chose to take the position with H2. Again, 189 properties, roughly 2,500 units. So there's only 6 of those properties that are over 50 units. So really not the need to have, of course, an individual at a 6-unit, 8-unit asset. Overarching thing that I would tell anyone moving in this direction, which we all are, is technology has to coast you through this process. It can get really exciting in the beginning when you realize that you have really capable, driven individuals on your team that are able to absorb more. You have to be very mindful of your employees' limits, because your owners, your investors, your senior leaders are seeing the savings on payroll, which is grand in the beginning, but you have to backfill that with the perfect fit individual for these roles, again, and understand their limits and be very aware of how they're feeling, how they're working. Can they take more? Do you pull back? And technology has to be your best friend in this process. You have to have technology at your right hand at all times. So really looking at, the positions you're attempting to eliminate or combine, and really exploring the incredible options we have in this industry on the tech side and coupling that in. And luckily, lots of these groups have a la carte options. So it's not an all-in thing. You can kind of just layer in what you need for the way you want to be centralized. And two, another piece of this is still having the human connection for your residents. It feels really strange for them in the beginning to have no on-site team, to have no office to walk into. We don't have an office that they can even access. We work in a high-rise downtown. It's making sure that you're in constant communication with your residents, making sure that you understand how they want to be communicated with. Those communication pieces are effective and fit best with them. So that would be what I feel like I can teach confidently in the coming years is making sure you're very aware of your tech options in this industry. That is so important with us moving towards centralization, and really understanding as a leader the limits of your team and what they can handle, and making sure that you're supporting them internally, you, and then also giving them the support of the technology and the tools that they need to centralize effectively.
You mentioned technology as being at the center of your centralization concept. I'm curious if you could share some pieces of tech that your company is currently using and leveraging for, maybe others that are watching our podcast out here to maybe inspire from your business model. Because I think there's a lot of challenges out there, and picking the right products.
We use AppFolio, which is a great product coming from a Yardi woman. But it is good for a centralized operation because my teams have two logins. They log into Outlook and they log into AppFolio. We're also centralizing internally. We're perfecting it internally when typically, an on-site operator, the logins that they have is astronomical and absurd, really. I like to, teach them how well it works inside so we can push that out to our residents. So we are able to do most of what needs to be done for our client base within AppFolio. We can call, we can text, we can, schedule maintenance requests based on each tech's talents. We also have 27 branded vans that are completely stocked with everything that our maintenance technicians need, and about a 10,000 square foot warehouse as the maintenance shop. So we're able to go in and highlight, their strengths and weaknesses with the base metrics. And then as they complete work orders based on timeliness, what type of work order, it starts to design their path for them each day. And then we also have trackers on the vans. Then that software integrates with AppFolio. So it auto assigns them tickets and then designs their routes for them based on, I start my day here at this location and I finish my day here at this location. Again, the properties, they're on and off properties all the time. And then two, that software on our vans, we have partners in our deals for the most part, at least half of the assets. So we have to bill payroll to each property, which can be time consuming when you have 189. So that software also identifies where they're at and it's billing their time to each asset. Our fleet software is extremely important for me. And then two, AppFolio, while it does have its quirks and no software system is perfect, it has been the best tool for us on the centralization piece. And the only challenge we have there is their tech stack is small, which I get. They're trying to do it all themselves. It hinders us a little bit with adding big players in that tech stack because it doesn't integrate. And I'm not going to engage with someone that doesn't integrate with the software as a whole. They kind of start to, but all in, it's a small tech stack on their side.
Yeah, it's interesting as you talked about, getting people to buy into the technology, tracking the trackers on the vans, looking at AI and different use cases. Are you training your teams right now? Like, how do you sprinkle in with your teams AI? How do you get them bought in on the trackers on a van and making sure they're not pulling it out of the van? How do you think about these things in implementation, and how much is too much versus the right amount? Like, do you have a balance and any secrets there?
So I've always managed with full transparency. I think it's always important for your team to, one, be confident in your intelligence, and two, to understand the why. I've never been the type of leader that says, we're putting these trackers on your vehicles, good luck. I explain to them, and I have a massive monitor in my office where I see them every day. I feel like a dispatcher someday. So I can see exactly where they're at. There's also a maintenance layer on there. It tells me when the oil needs to be changed, when anything needs to be done, which is really nice. It's really, instead of saying, I put these trackers on your vans, move forward, before they were even put on the vans, the software was up. I had gone through extensive training, and I explained it to them. I explained the positives of this. And also coupled with that is, this is not a tool because I don't trust you. This is simply a tool to make us more efficient, because I understand what you're doing is difficult. They're not getting on a golf cart and going 200 yards to a unit and then 50 yards to the next unit. They're in and out of these vehicles, going to each property every day. And that can be overwhelming for maintenance technicians. I feel like you really have to lay their path out in more of a tunnel-like design, where this is what you're doing for the day, but really explaining to them, this is how it ties into Appfolio, this is how it's going to help you. And they were all really excited about it. As far as taking the trackers off, obviously, I don't distrust until you give me a reason to. But I'm alerted in multiple ways, if that tracker turns off or if it's taken off of the vehicle. Yes, it's only happened once, but there's also disciplinary action that comes with that. So most of them do not attempt.
We used to have vans and we had trackers, and obviously people could disconnect or take things off or do funny things on their break times and whatnot. But it was always a challenge tracking things down, and explaining to them, oh, here's why it's important. Here's why it's important to drive safely, for your own safety. But all
it's
those
really interesting. It tells us how quickly they turn a curve. Idle time, that's a big one we pay close attention to, how quickly they accelerate. I always joke with them too. I'm like, don't put it on my car. I'm not the best driver, so it would not have good results, but they laugh at that. But yeah, it's I think explaining the why, and again, I'm very lucky. When I was growing up, my parents, if it was something as simple as, we buy this tomato instead of this one, and here's why, not just here it is. So
we have our one question from the audience, and I want to salute Paul Bergeron for being with us, for hanging out. Paul, Paul is being with us the entire time. Paul wants to ask you, is it challenging to find maintenance techs? And once you hire them, do they like the centralized management strategy?
So we are lucky at H2 because we're able to offer maintenance technicians something that most companies cannot, which is a vehicle, number one, and two, they're not required to use any of their own tools. They are able, when they're on call, to take that vehicle home. So I do not have a difficult time hiring maintenance technicians nor retaining them, because they really have best case scenario with us. And also with the warehouse, again, it's about 10,000 square feet. We have a warehouse supervisor that makes sure all the inventory is there for them, so they're not waiting on parts, pieces, because a lot of times on site you simply lack storage. You can't keep a lot of what you need. You've got to order it in real time. No issues with retaining talent for me, or getting new talent, because it really just looks like a very nice deal from jump.
And now a word from Dean Fungawing, founder and CEO, KAIROS.
This first customer where we installed this solution for, we installed on January 4th this year. And within like 3 weeks, the temperatures of the attic had gotten below 40, immediately sent a notification to the chief building engineer. They saw that the temperatures that night, according to the weather forecast, were going to drop into the 20s, low 20s. Well, sure enough, the ambient sensor could tell that the attic was dropping very fast, like within hours, down to 32 degrees. And that night it had gotten down to 20 degrees. Well, luckily for them, they went on fire watch. Once they saw the temperatures were approaching freezing, they could drain the lines of the system. And that way there was no risk to the asset. And they just had to pay for a little bit of overtime for somebody to walk the building every 45 minutes. In the morning, when the temperatures start to rise, they could turn the system back on and go back off of fire watch, right? This happened multiple nights in a row. And one of the nights, they actually caught a crack in one of the lines, the leak sensor. They were able to detect that there was a small crack in one of the lines from it just being an old line. And they only had to pay $3,000 for a specialized plumber to come and fix that line, but they didn't have any damage. Last year, over $300,000 worth of damage because of the apartments flooding. Same building, same issue. The following year, 0 water damage. And the only difference was they knew what the temperature of the pipes were. And that's it, right? Like once you know, then you can act and be responsible.
As we think about different markets, and some people have called different states different names and different things, and some people don't go into certain markets, but I have some friends who are in the Birmingham market. And so I'm kind of curious, like, what are the secrets that others don't know that maybe, they're overseeing by skipping Birmingham and going straight to Atlanta or going to Florida? Why is it, what is it that you love or that you're really seeing about Birmingham and why you're optimistic about it?
In Birmingham, we have, which I have been here most of my life, and it is a very progressive city, and the local business owners and business people in Birmingham, they love it here. They take a lot of heart into it. For example, our owners, Scott and Carter Hughes, they're both local Birmingham men, and they decided to buy 189 properties in Birmingham. So I think it is low-hanging fruit, but the right investor, I have found, gets really excited. It does take a little bit more of a sales pitch to them at times, but, showing the property management companies that have made a huge impact in Birmingham, the investors that have come in and been really successful. Also, too, I feel like that's part of my duty as the president of the apartment association, is to really be able to show the value that we have here, the money that you can make and not spend, an arm and a leg for the asset. But I'm lucky because, our 189 properties are in the Birmingham metro area. So I'm able to really take H2 as a case study in a sense to new investors. Super excited again about NMHC to get in front of some folks and to say, hey, here's what we've done. We're doing it centralized. Here's how old the assets are, how many we have. So that's exciting. And Huntsville too. I mean, Huntsville's a hot topic these days. So it pulls away from us at the current moment. And also Birmingham has an incredible food scene. So most folks that you talk to about Birmingham will mention a few of our fantastic restaurants we have.
You mentioned investors earlier, and working with multiple investors could be challenging. Would you share a few things that are keeping your investors up at night, their top concerns?
Interest rates and insurance. I feel like too, and I coach and tell my teams this all the time. Your investors are a lot like your team. They all want to be reported to differently. I think it's important that you report to them, communicate with them, and remain as transparent as possible with them to not keep them up at night. The baseline is understanding that is their kind of hot buttons and ensuring that, you're delivering in a way where they're not up. But, delinquency is a hot topic right now, not so much with my folks, but industry standard. I'm moving into my president role here and speaking from that standpoint. But we've got a lot of new construction in Birmingham. So a big kind of concession pinball machine, I call it. Someone offers here. And what have we done? We've all just really moved ourselves and no one can make any significant moves at this point. So that is a challenge. New construction, they're needing to meet loan requirements, get people in quickly. So they offer these concessions. These folks can't pay rent after 6 months or so because it's $4,000 a month. And that 2-month concession recurring has run out. Evictions keep our Birmingham investors up at night. Average time to evict a resident in Jefferson County is 4 to 6 months. So that is a challenge, a big challenge. We're running up against some local ordinances of, does your eviction attorney collect your bad debt, or are you able to pull that account back and have, a bad debt collection group within the industry, Pay Ready, Hunter Warfield, whoever, collect that debt for you? If you allow your attorney to collect the debt, it's not going to hit that individual's credit until their wages are garnished, which can take a very long time to do. So they're able to go to another community, get that upfront concession, and do the same thing to the neighbor. So that is a challenge. And I have found that, again, my role as the president of the Birmingham Apartment Association benefits myself and H2 in numerous ways. But I'm in very close contact to not only our eviction attorney for H2, but legal counsel for the association and all of the eviction attorneys that are involved in Birmingham. So I'm getting real-time information from them and able to educate, the group as a whole on how to best combat that. But that would be one. And then Birmingham Water Works, this is in the weeds a little bit, but water and sewer expenses in Jefferson County are astronomical. I always know on a financial statement, the phone rings. It's the first question, almost always, these water and sewer bills. So
Is that from the residents, the calls, or is it from the properties and owners side?
It's usually from, new investors or owners as well. And again, when you understand each investor as an individual and how they want information delivered to them and what hot topics there are within our county and the Birmingham metro area, we have very extensive preventative maintenance programs for checking for leaks, educating the residents on a running toilet is not just something you can wait a few days to call in. They're pretty good about, because most of our properties are bill back, so they're on a RUBS program. So they absorb 95% of the actual water usage.
Got it. When you're thinking about things that inspire you, are you more of a book reader or podcast listener, or are there certain types of things you listen to, and maybe people who stand out that give you kind of inspiration on some of your processes and follow up?
I love books. I read a lot of books, some for leisure, some professional. Too many authors to name. I mean, I would feel like I would do a disservice to name just a few, but I always share, anytime I teach a class, I always share my books. I usually buy a copy for the class and give those to them and make sure that I'm sharing those with my team members as well. We have a bookshelf at our office that has, the books that I feel are important there, ready for anyone to take and enjoy. And two, I love to share my love of reading professionally, especially with my peers. So a book that I recommend to you may be different for Adrian based on your style. But yes, books are most important to me. This is funny. The people who know me well that are listening are laughing right now. I do not watch TV. It sounds really odd, but I cannot focus on a television show, especially if it's more than about an hour. So I love books and I love talking to people. I get a lot of inspiration from past leaders in the industry and people like you guys, that I get to have, personal relationships with and good conversations. So
funny enough, I'm the same. I don't watch TV either. We just don't have the time, nor do we have cable. And we got the kids and travel and other things going on, but I'm similar. I like the books. Are there any mentors in your life that stand out? You mentioned obviously the two owners and partners of the company, but are there any mentors out there from NAA or NMHC and some of your past work that maybe stand out that you want to call out, and why were they so impactful on you and personally and or your career?
I am so lucky. I do want to mention my mom, who's in a meeting. She's not on here today. That's the businesswoman she is. She said, "Good luck. I've got a meeting." I wouldn't expect anything less. She's hilarious. So My mom is just, for me, the absolute most incredible example of a business professional. I'm so lucky for that because I've had that since a very young age, since I could realize, hey, this is what she's doing. And this is why you learn to communicate effectively. And this is why you dress a certain way. So definitely my mom. And then, another one that stands out is Jen Bauer, which hopefully she's on. I am so grateful to Jen because she is a calm leader, and you feel it when she walks in the room, and she makes an impact whether something comes out of her mouth or not, because everyone understands, especially me, how intelligent she is, how well she's done in the business. And overall, she's made such a great impact on me because she invited me to sit at tables that I was most certainly unqualified to be at early in my career. But that's where I learned the most, just being thrown into it. And I can remember my first time at NMHC years ago, sitting at a table thinking, this sounds like Mandarin. What are these people saying? I'm really, really grateful for her. And, I am surrounded by an incredible amount of really strong women in the industry, and we just support each other. I'm part of an East Coast pickleball industry women league, which is really fun. But yeah, Jen Bauer and my mom would probably be the top two. And really a shout out to all of the leaders that were harder on me than I am myself. At the time I'm thinking, whoa, this is a lot. I was 20, 22, 23 years old. But I look back at those leaders and I'm most grateful for them. And it's really shaped and taught me how to lead best. Now I get those calls from individuals that worked for me 10, 12 years ago. And they're like, I thought you were horrible at the time. Like, you were just so hard on me. And I'm so thankful for that. It completely changed my life. And, they're in leadership roles now. So overall, grateful to be surrounded by supportive industry as a whole. And most importantly, the women that have really shaped me in my career.
The advent of artificial intelligence in the world, creates a lot of conversations. Some are concerned, high level of concerns that it's going to eliminate jobs. It's going to do a lot of negative things. There's also the other side that, consider this a positive. I'd like to get your thoughts on it in general. And then secondly, if you could share with us any type of thoughts that you have regarding to applying, like bringing artificial intelligence into your multifamily operations.
I think it is a great, great tool, especially for our industry, especially for H2 being centralized. The main thing I preach to my team all the time is that it's not set it and forget it. You have to keep your eye on it. You have to make sure you course correct whichever program you're using to make it work best for you. If you don't, everyone's going to get frustrated because it's not going to be effective. You have to make sure to keep your eye on it. As far as the fear of it eliminating jobs, thinking about, again, my role as the association president, I feel like it's really put your genuine, true industry leaders or soon to be leaders in a new gear. It's been exciting because you've seen really effective folks even, run faster, go further, because they're trying to protect themselves. You've seen managers who thought just one site was fit for them come to you and say, hey, I think I can take 3, and here's how I think I can do it with the technology that's been implemented here. So I'm a very firm believer in AI. It's necessary. It is necessary in general, but more so, I feel like with what we're doing in the centralization. And again, I feel like it's motivated employees to do better, and to really test their limits. But it again, you have to keep your hands in it at all times. We've had some failures with AI, to be honest with you, in the beginning. Trusting it too much, thinking this is fantastic and she's great. Goodbye. No. You have to sit with her and visit her every day, and keep a close eye on what she's doing. But it's great for our residents too. I mean, instant gratification is a huge, huge plus, in our industry and as a whole. being able to get good, quick answers that solve problems, not good, quick answers just because, I want a solution to my problem. I don't want you to just say you responded to me. That does nothing. No response would be better in that sense.
How do you think about that? Because many people, I was just listening to something about overcoming perfectionism and trying to be too focused on just the same thing, but actually taking some risk, taking a little bit of risk, calculated risk, trying AI, making those failures. Is that something you try to instill in others or yourself to say, hey, taking action, trying new things are okay when you have a two-way door? Like, are there any frameworks you kind of follow, like an 80-20 principle or 10% of the time, try something new? How do you think about that? And how do you try to share with others to be able to step out and try something innovative or unique?
I think too, again, leading by example as a leader is important. You being excited about change, invigorated by change, communicating with your team from the beginning. It's okay to, stumble. It's okay. We're going to come up on these hurdles, and this is how we're going to learn best. This is how we're going to perfect this best and make it most effective for us and our residents. But for me, any resistance towards change or, someone that's not willing to face challenges, you go nowhere but slide back because everyone else is going this way. Yes, I do instill it in my team by leading by example, and I don't want to say that I haven't been given direction by ownership in this role or past roles where I'm thinking, gosh, I don't feel this, but I have to do it. Telling yourself as a leader and understanding that the way you walk in that door every day impacts your team. It impacts what kind of day they're going to have. The way you roll out a new program to them, a new technology piece or whatever it may be, new policy, procedure, your attitude and your confidence in that is important, whether you buy in or not. Understanding that the success of any change is going to be driven by your attitude towards it, and to always communicating to your team that we are going to have challenges. This is not going to be perfect, and here's how we're going to address those challenges as we come up on them, which we have had at H2. Again, I was put into a completely centralized operation, so most tech pieces had already been chosen when I got there. So that was interesting too. I wasn't able to navigate those on my own in the beginning. I was forced to learn something that they had kind of set and forgot, untangle it, and then massage it back to how we needed it to work. But I think just surrounding your team with a positive attitude and excitement around change and explaining the why we're doing it, why it's necessary, how it's going to benefit us, our owners, and our residents is important.
I want to give a shout out to Jen Bauer for watching us.
Oh,
And then next, surprise, I do want to give you a shout out from Jen Bauer. I'm about to pull this message right here on the screen so you could read it, right? Watching you grow into an incredible leader makes me so proud. That's a direct message from Jen. Jen, thank you for watching us today, for being with us today. It's very kind of you to join us today. Katelyn, you are an incredible leader. A lot of upcoming leaders are looking up to you. They want to become you one day. What are some pieces of advice that you have for those that are now moving up into their organizations and they want to become an industry executive one day?
My biggest piece of advice is to be in or remain in a constant state of learning. Be willing to change, be willing to fail, be willing to learn, stay curious, continue or start to build meaningful relationships with others in the industry. Leadership to me is about inspiring and empowering others. So really, focus on developing your current skills, learning new skills, and supporting your team, and celebrating your successes and equally celebrating your failures. I can look back in my career, and I don't like to call them challenges. I like to call them hurdles. And some taller than others, some took longer to get over than others. And, when you're there, you think this is tough. And I always try to take a step back when I'm struggling and really survey, how we landed here and how do we not do this again? How we got here, what contributing factors could I control, which ones I could not. Always being confident in there is a lesson behind this hurdle. You may learn what it is next week, or it may be 5 years. But I'm so grateful that that mindset was instilled in me from early in my career, because I'm able to look back and it's so interesting. Like, it's like they were all puzzle pieces that are nicely fitting together. And another piece of advice would continue to be open to continue failing, and understanding change is necessary, failure is necessary, because if we do everything just right, you're not learning. Again, that would be my biggest piece of advice. Stay in a constant state of learning and really seek out, learning opportunities and build meaningful relationships.
There's a lot of people changing careers right now, and people are changing careers, looking for new opportunities. Something I just heard was like that there's a discussion around culture, and that's, to be smart, people a lot of times, I think you have to be smart, but also have to be mean. And those two things can be actually are very different parts of the brain, turns out. Like, you can be very kind, you can have a great culture, and you actually be very smart. So I'm curious, like, with all this, there was a study, I think recently, said like 60% of people, or maybe it was just something I saw from some multiple people, 60% of people are looking for their next career. How do you think about that? Are you really investing in your teams around the culture? Are you being proactive to try and keep them retained? And then how are you going about attracting the talent from other companies for these people who they haven't openly said they're going to leave, but they're interested in leaving?
So it's funny you say that, because we just got 2 new team members that are very highly respected in the industry to join our team. For me, as far as talent goes, yes, we do invest a lot in our culture at H2. It was very different from the environment I came from. So it's been, I've learned a lot over the past 2 years. Your culture starts from you, I feel like, just simply being a genuine person, not just saying you care or this is what we're going to do, but genuinely feeling it and them seeing it. And it is possible to harbor a good culture and be firm. I like to say respected is a better word. If they respect you, if you tell them the whys, invest in their learning opportunities, empower them, and they see your successes along the way, and you share them and include them in those, they really start to respect you and think, hey, this person knows what they're doing. I am lucky I have a little bit of an advantage at H2, because the excitement around centralization gives me the upper hand in hiring talent. Again, the 2 individuals that are joining our team they're kind of in the mindset I was 2 years ago, that, hey, this is a centralized operation. We see this is where it's going, and I want to be in the trenches of it, learning about it. So, I can perfect it and move forward too. And hopefully one day teach people how it was done. But yes, culture is key. And again, I think just genuinely empowering, supporting your team members is very, very important. Leading in a genuine style, being empathetic, within reason to your team members, and understanding, I feel like love languages in the workplace, that's a book I love, is so important. You have to communicate with each employee differently, understand what makes them tick. I think that's important too. Culture can't just be an all-encompassing, this is our culture here. It's got to be able to fit the mold of each individual and what's going to make them work best for you.
We have a lot of interest, personal interest of myself and also from the audience today about your company's business model. So with that being said, I'd like to take another question from the audience. Jason Biskov is saying, scatter site is hard with the 5 to 40 unit buildings. Congrats on your success. Are you able to drop into an entirely new market yet with your processes and centralization? In other words, is this at this moment scalable where you could deploy your resources and your knowledge in a brand new market and actually be up and running immediately?
I feel like we're about 60% of the way there. And that is one of my goals, is to be able to take that and, someone say, "Hey, Katelyn, I need you to do it here," and implement it there. I could do it now, but at the confidence level I would want to walk into a new project like that with our business model, I'd say I'm about 60% there. And I would like to note, when I started at H2, we had 76 and 79 employees. That was November of 2022, and today we're at 56. Same amount of units. We haven't disposed of any properties.
So a lot more efficient processes.
Mm-hmm. And technology has been the reason why, with that. And two, again, identifying your really strong players and understanding their limits.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious on that too. Efficiency, but you've got people all over and on, remote working from offices, locations, physical spaces they have to be at. How do you think about the balance of being in an office, being remote, being able to get work done from anywhere? Do you have a stated policy? Are you pretty flexible with your teams because they're adults, or what are your thoughts there?
I'm pretty flexible. Again, unless you give me a reason to not trust you, I trust you. And again, I think, leading in a way where I work from all over. I called my office earlier and I said, "Can you look in my office?" And my team member said, "Which one?" I'm moving all the time. So I think really, again, setting a positive example of how you do that effectively, how you can be at an MHC for a week and still get to your team and take care of things that need to be taken care of, answer emails, stay in constant contact while traveling, or I'm at our association office today. So no, we don't have an actual policy, because I feel that really gets people in the mode of, well, I get to work, from home 2 days a week. Some weeks that's going to work and some weeks it's not. I'm lucky I don't have many team members that would be thinking quite like that. But no, we don't have a strict policy. I like to, as a leader, I like to address negative behavior right when it happens. I don't let it stack up. So that too prevents a lot of the testing of the water, and two, being very aware, human nature. If they feel like they can get away with a little something, they'll take it a little further the next time. So having checks and balances in place to prevent that from happening.
Katelyn, one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot myself lately is legacy. I want to ask you, when it's all said and done for you and you draw the line, how do you want to be remembered? What would you like your legacy to be?
I would like to be remembered as a genuine leader, not the person who got the title and disconnected from the day to day. I've said this my whole career. The first time I ever got a significant promotion, I remember looking at myself in the mirror and thinking, don't ever get too far from the leasing table. Understand each team member's role thoroughly and what part they play in making the operation tick. But I would want my legacy to be, she was a genuine leader. She was a tough leader, but she threw a lot of hurdles in my way, but I learned from them. I want those individuals, to anyone that I've ever had the pleasure of leading, whether it ended great or not. I have people that I terminated call me today and say, "Hey, that was the worst day of my life, but it changed my life." So really just remembering me as someone who empowered them, ensured that they had a good day at work. That's one of my simple goals that I have every single day. Our team members give us a lot of their time. They give us a lot of their mental space, physical energy, and we owe it to them to ensure they have a good day at work most days. But yeah, a genuine leader, one that empowered, but expectations were high, and someone they learned something from. And hopefully they're looking back at me from, their high leadership role.
Thank you for the very thoughtful and amazing conversation, Katelyn. It's been great having you on today. Any final thoughts for us and for the audience?
No, thank you guys so much for joining. So special to me that Jen was on. Again, she's played a very important role in my career and growth in this industry, and I'm so thankful for her. To my mom, who's in a meeting, thankful to her and you guys too for having me. It's been fantastic.
Chris, any final thoughts?
No, Katelyn, great job. Amazing job for your first time on a podcast. I really loved some of the stories you dove in, the vulnerability, the honesty. You dove in with very good specifics. So really enjoyed that. And yeah, it gave us some really good insight into why your team is not only focused, but being successful. I think we got to come out and visit you. Is there a great food in your town, or is there a great spot you love to hang out that you recommend to everyone if they come to town?
So well, Frank Stitt is a James Beard Award winning chef here in town. He owns 3 spots. So Bottega, Chez Fonfon, and Highlands Bar and Grill. So I am so thankful. Bottega is within walking distance from my house. So
Awesome.
I'm able to scoot down there, but that would be one of my top places I would recommend. But please come visit. It's a great place. Avoid the summer if you can. It's very hot and very humid. But we had snow 2 weeks ago. That was incredible.
Yeah. And they're saying maybe snow next week, right?
Yes, there's supposed to be snow next week too. So
crazy.
That's interesting too, leading a team through all of that. And folks can't get around. But yeah, the snow was fun.
Thanks again, Katelyn.
Thank you guys.
I want to thank our sponsors from KAIROS and Coastal Painting Contractors for being with us, supporting and making this broadcast possible. Also, I want to thank our listeners and all of you that join us live today. The show wouldn't exist without you. We're very eager to see you next Wednesday. This time around, we're going to do it on a Wednesday. Our guest, another special guest, will be Gary Gregory. Until next week, have an amazing afternoon and take care.
Thanks, guys.
See you all. Thank you, Katelyn.